Fans, next time you need tickets to a game or concert, head to StubHub and discover why millions of fans make it their go-to site for finding great seats, even on the day of the event and even if it's sold out. The only question is, where do you want to sit? StubHub! The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
this is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
It might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report, a sunny Monday here in Southern California. The BS Report has been gone for a month. I hope you noticed. We had some guest hosts. I was in Europe. I went to the Olympics in London and ended up staying for a few extra days, and definitely the longest break we've ever had from the BS Report that it didn't involve me either protesting something or being suspended. It's great to be back, and we are going to bang out BS Reports day after day after day after day until you get tired of them. The first one, though, we had to call my buddy JackO at work because I don't know if you noticed, but the Red Sox 2012 season has gone to hell, and we have a lot of catching up to do. We're going to call him right now.
Complex Litigation, this is John.
Oh, Johnny.
Hey, buddy.
How's it going, my man?
Not too bad. How you doing?
Well, I missed the last 28 days of Red Sox coverage, games, highlights, articles, everything. And I got to be honest, it felt great. It felt great missing all of it. Oh, it was awesome.
You didn't miss much in a good way, let me tell you.
Every time a Red Sox season or any of the Boston teams go in the tank like this, I'm just going to leave the country. I found like it was very effective.
You may spend the next couple of years in Europe then.
I might have to get a second house.
Yeah.
Man, I don't even know where to begin.
It's tough.
As the premier reveler in Red Sox misery, what was your favorite part of the last 4 weeks?
Oh, my favorite part was when I was on vacation at the Cape last week, a lovely vacation. And I forget if I learned it on Twitter. I think I learned it on Twitter, actually, about the whole Yahoo, is it Dan Wessel, is his name?
Oh, it was Jeff Passan.
Jeff Passan. Who am I thinking of? I don't know. Jeff Passan article about the feverish text to ownership saying, get Bobby V out of here after he left John Lester in for 11 runs against the Blue Jays, and that whole thing, and the damage control after the fact about that. That story was my favorite thing of all time. There was so much in there to like. I actually read it twice, and I enjoyed it slowly like a fine aged wine. I love the fact that everybody's favorite scrappy binky, Dustin Pedroia, was apparently one of the ringleaders, and that he proudly circulates a photo on his phone of Bobby V sleeping and him mocking him like a substitute teacher in front of him. That's fantastic. And that he was the
Isn't
ringleader.
he a substitute teacher, though? Like, what's the difference between Bobby V and a substitute teacher?
Well, there really is none.
I'm on Pedroia's side here.
There really is none, I suppose. But, you know, for the self-appointed captain of the Red Sox, basically, de facto, if not explicitly, you know, for him to go around and do his best to undermine the manager after everything they've been through in the past year, the September collapse, everything else. And I realized that he was Tito's teacher's pet. But the fact that he's leading a mutiny and every Red Sox fan, you know, goes to bed in their little Pedroia pajamas dreaming of how scrappy he is and what a gritty leader he is, was so fantastic to see him be the ultimate clubhouse cancer. I love that to no end. That was so good.
See, I don't feel like he was a cancer at all. I always look at these situations like, what would I have done if I been in that person's shoes? Can you imagine being on this Red Sox team and having Bobby V as the manager? You know, this guy comes out of TV, like you're already kind of worried that might be a joke. And then the Euclid thing happens within the first 2 weeks, and he doesn't know, like, if a certain guy is a lefty or a righty, and, you know.
He's
it just
brutal, no question. And everybody knew he was going to be awful. No, there's no question about that either. But if you're a Red Sox player and you had your good friend Tito as the manager for however many years he managed, several years, and then you collapse in September, so they have no choice but to make a change. You would think you would be on your best behavior and say, look, we completely imploded. We had lofty expectations. We fell apart in September. Now we have to suffer with Bobby Valentine, but that's the price we have to pay. So forget Bobby V. Let's just play for each other and go out there and get the job done. You would think that's what Scrappy Binky should have had, like a team meeting, players-only meeting, and said that. Instead, he's actively contributing to the chaos.
I didn't mind it. Like, first of all, it's not a good baseball team, and I don't think. Let's say this team had good clubhouse chemistry. Would it have mattered? Would it have stopped the fact that think how much money they've spent on Lackey, Beckett, Lester, and Dice K, if you include whatever they paid to get him to win the signing auction.
Right.
Which somehow doesn't count on this year's salary, which probably should, right? It should be like
I would think
what was
so.
it, $51 million?
I mean, if the goal in having
a
luxury tax is competitive balance, I mean, that's $51 million that the Red Sox or the Yankees can pay that theoretically the Pirates and the Royals can't. So you would think that would be a factor, yes.
So they went 0 for 4 on those 4 pitchers this season. Because Lester, we've talked about this before on the podcast, Lester is all of a sudden somewhere, he's probably slightly below average.
Oh, no, he's more than slightly below average. He pitched well on Saturday. He's had a couple of good starts. His last 2 starts have been okay, but he's been abysmal otherwise.
I didn't want to give him the abysmal. I
understand. It's hard. You're going through a hard time here. I understand. I'm here for you.
Can we go with mildly abysmal?
All right, sure.
Beckett's been abysmal. I'll give Beckett the abysmal.
Oh, of course.
Throw in like all the off-field stuff.
Oh, yeah, terrible.
Ironically, Lackey's had the best year of the 3. He hasn't played.
Exactly. And that's the
I think he's been at...
What's one of the more underreported stories is that apparently Lackey is like the ultimate clubhouse guy. Like literally, like people on every Red Sox player would like give Lackey a kidney if needed. They can't stop raving about what a good guy he is. It's up there with our other favorite thing we've talked about before, Penny Hardaway's workout before he was picked by the Magic that everybody was blown away by. Like John Lackey's like clubhouse persona. Apparently, he's like the greatest guy ever to walk the earth in a clubhouse. I don't know what he does, like what his routine is, but the players like absolutely would walk through fire for him. It's crazy. Meanwhile, every fan wants to set him on fire. So,
what would happen if John Lackey and Nick Swisher were in the same clubhouse? Would it you could just have 23 serial killers and everyone would get along anyway?
Team might go 162-0. Everybody would be so happy.
Well, I will tell you that I enjoyed this John Lackey season a lot more than I enjoyed last season. And the best part was not having to watch him pitch.
Are you looking forward to next season with John Lackey back fresh with after Tommy John surgery? Feeling good?
Well, so here's Lester.
Yeah.
You know, statistically not as like horrific as you would think.
Isn't he? Well, I know wins don't matter anymore in the new thing, but isn't he like 5-10 or 6-10?
7-10.
And what's
but
his
wins
ERA?
Don't matter. Wins don't matter in the current pitching climate, Johnny.
That's true. What's his ERA?
All right, so 154 innings, 163 hits. That's not a disaster.
Not terrible.
133 strikeouts to 46 walks. Also not a total disaster. 1.36 WHIP. Obviously not ideal. You'd like to see that a little lower.
Sure.
And a 5.03 ERA.
Oh, there you go.
But as you mentioned earlier, some blame has to be given to Bobby V there for leaving him in for that one shellacking when he gave up the 11 runs.
They had burned through their bullpen, though, and they were about to go on I think they were about to play the Yankees, so I don't think he had any choice but to leave him out there to dry for a while. He had to take one for the team there.
Yeah.
Because they needed to preserve the bullpen.
To me, Beckett's...
he's been brutal. But you're counting on, I mean, Lester, I know wins don't count, but he is 7-10 with a 5 ERA. He's supposed to be your ace.
Yeah, that's not ideal.
And then you have
for a little better.
Especially when Beckett is, what's he, like 5-11 or something?
Combined, they're 12-21.
Right.
With a 5.10 ERA.
And
that's not what we're looking for.
And that's just with their decisions and games where they didn't get a decision. I think their record is even worse. I think they're like 12 or 13 games under 500 and games started by the guys that are supposed to be, Ace 1 and Ace 1A. So that's the problem.
That's been the funny thing of this season. Like, people, who don't really follow the Red Sox, who know I like them, there was, what's going on with the Red Sox this year? It's like, you want to know what's going on? Our pitching stinks.
That's true.
That's what's going on. Everybody we throw out, with the exception of Clay Buchholz the last 10 weeks, cannot get anybody out. And that's it. That's it in a nutshell. This whole team was built around pitching, and about the fact that, once upon a time when Theo took over, and there were all these little inefficiencies, and we were able to get all these bargain guys, and then everyone in the league started copying them. And then it's like, all right, well, where are the inefficiencies? Well, there really aren't any. Oh, I know what we can do. We'll outspend everybody, and we'll go get the best pitchers. And we'll have an awesome starting pitching staff. And that's the one thing that Oakland and Minnesota and whoever can't really afford to do. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to grow our own pitchers, and then we're going to pay them. And we paid these guys, and they all stink.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that's why the Red Sox stink. The hitting hasn't been... it's not the 27 Yankees, but I wouldn't say the hitting's been a catastrophe. Like, even
I think Adrian
Gonzalez has been terrible.
Last night in the Yankees game, they said that they were like third in the AL in runs scored, I think, behind the Rangers and the Yankees. So you can't really quibble about the offense, and they have been without Big Papi for the last 30 games because of his heel or whatever. So to still be third in the league in runs, you would say the problem is not the offense, no. But they do have a lot of guys in that lineup you could pitch to. I mean,
Yeah.
Be it Salta Lamacchia, who hasn't, has 20 home runs, but I think they were all before the All-Star break. He struck out some ungodly a number of times. Vilas you can pitch to. Now with Nick Punto in there, you can certainly pitch to Nick Punto. Gonzalez has been hot lately, but they're getting nothing really from the outfield except for Cody Ross. Ellsbury hasn't been the same since he came back from injury. You have the freaking second coming of Rogers Hornsby and Pedro Ciriaco, who the Yankees can't seem to get out. But
Yankee killer
Pedro Ciriaco. But there's a lot of guys. Like, you look at that lineup, and it doesn't put the fear of God into me. I mean, even Pedroia is hitting like 280. He seems to do well against the Yankees too. But
I was fortunate enough to be out of the country this weekend, as what on paper as recently as 4 months ago would have been considered a pretty big Red Sox-Yankee series. Didn't turn out to be a really big Yankee-Red Sox series. Part of me wonders if this is a good thing in some ways, that the Red Sox are bottoming out, and now maybe we'll be able to put the whole Sweet Caroline era behind us and go back to winning.
I just hope that the sellout streak doesn't come to an end. One of the most treasured records in sports history.
I hope it doesn't come to an end 4 months ago.
Exactly. Well, I think that the Red Sox have to sort of bottom out and say to their fans, like, look, now it's time to rebuild, and they can play the young kids, and maybe expectations will be lowered. But, with the current makeup of ownership, and I think there's too many cooks in the kitchen, and I don't know who's in charge, and I'm not sure what the management chart looks like. Excuse me. I don't know that it's fixable, and you have problems of, like, you have Crawford, who's going to have Tommy John surgery, who's still owed, I think, another $120 million. You have Lackey, who you're still on the hook to for 3 more years, I believe, at 16, 18 per year that you literally couldn't give away. And you have problems with Ellsbury becoming a free agent. What do you do with him? Big Papi, the owners love him, and they're going to probably bring him back at another $15 million a year to make him happy, when no one in the American League pays anything close to that for a DH. So I don't know where you fix it. And who fixes it? Lucchino? Cherington?
Well, that's the thing. You said there are a lot of chefs in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I would argue that there are no chefs in the kitchen. It's just a bunch of people who run the restaurant.
Stand around
who are all looking at each other. Yeah, they're all looking at, hey, do you guys know how to make a steak? I don't either. Where's the grill? Is this 450 degrees? It turns this way, right? I think that's part of the issue. It's a really weird situation. I mean, you go back to September 2011, and the big swoon, then the smear campaign, then the managerial search, and then, look at the 2 trades they made. The 2 big off-season moves that weren't really off-season moves.
Yeah.
Those were 2 of the worst trades of the last 10 years for the Red Sox.
Yeah, Lowry for Melanson.
I know Lowry got hurt, but, you don't switch hitting young infielder. You don't give away for like a throwaway reliever. And then
who for the last 5 years we were told is like the Red Sox version of Jeter, the homegrown guy that's going to be at shortstop for the next 15 years.
Well, and also we didn't have a shortstop.
Exactly.
It's not like they were like, we gotta make room for so and so. And then the Bailey.
Reddick for Bailey.
Yeah, Bailey, who always gets hurt, so it wasn't a shock that he got hurt. I think everybody was surprised that Reddick is hitting for the kind of power he's had, but man, in my AL keeper league, Reddick just got traded for like Miguel Cabrera and two other guys because he was a $5 keeper. It's just, and then the Bobby V managerial search, like you can't have a worse stretch of how to handle something from an organizational standpoint for a 6-month span than the Red Sox did from September to March. It's
and we haven't even talked about the decision to convert poor Daniel Bard into a starter. And he's now ruined for life. I mean, he was the closer in waiting. He was a dominant setup guy, and now he literally can't find home plate.
He's like, it's like a Lifetime movie, like The Ruining of Daniel Bard, starring Craig T. Nelson.
Exactly. I know. Really? Poor Daniel Bard is like in a straitjacket or something. Jimmy Pearsall Part 2. It's terrible for him.
Can't they just film the E60 feature about him now? Like, why do we have to wait an extra 2 years? Just get in the can now.
Well, you might want to wait until he's trying to make a comeback with like the Royals or something, after he kicked around a couple years in the Mexican League trying to work on his delivery or whatever.
The Royals fans wanted to be offended by that, and then they just all agreed that they'd actually like be excited if they had Daniel Bard in AAA. A couple Worlds.
I'm still mad at the Royals about their treatment of Robinson Cano, so I don't mind throwing them under the bus. So.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, screw those guys.
Yeah.
So so Crawford, the Tommy John surgery.
Yeah.
Look, it seemed like about 6 weeks ago everybody said, yeah, he's going to need Tommy John surgery. He's going to try to play through it.
Right.
Oh, okay. Because this team's
Well, no, what happened was Carl Crawford
going anywhere.
What's that?
Well, no, it's just like, if you need a Tommy John surgery, just get the Tommy John surgery. What do you need an extra 4 weeks?
Well, the problem was Carl Crawford and his doctor said that he needed Tommy John surgery, and Ben Cherington's like, you don't need Tommy John surgery.
Right.
Which really means Larry Lucchino said, you don't need Tommy John surgery. And they wanted to keep playing. They didn't want to throw the white flag, probably because of their ridiculous sellout streak or whatever reason, or because they want to get something for their $21 million a year. So he's like, I'll just keep playing until my elbow explodes one game. And now finally that basically, they're done for the season, even though they can't come out and admit that, they're going to say, okay, you can have the surgery so you can get ready for next year.
Yeah, that's my point. He should have had the surgery 5 weeks ago, and this is the kind of stuff that happens. It reminds me, obviously not the same significance, not the same kind of player, but when you have an organization that's this effed up, you tend to make these long-term decisions that make no sense. And like when in Portland, Brandon Roy was playing in the playoffs that year when his knee wasn't, he'd had this minor surgery. They threw him back out there. It was the kind of thing that happens when nobody on your organization's in the same page. And this is how the Crawford thing felt like that to me. It's like, well, we're not winning the World Series this year with this crappy team. So go get the surgery now, and maybe you can come back in time for the second half of next season.
Of course.
And every week that goes by is another week where you haven't had the surgery yet. Do you feel like, as an outsider, be honest, do you feel like this season has been so loathsome and nobody's better than the Boston media with a team like this? Do you feel like deep down the people back home, I'm not saying they'd want this every year, but it's kind of been a fun trip down nostalgia lane. Just
you get
going down, Jacoby's going to have to bleep me, just a show of a season. It's kind of like the Red Sox season that I've grown up with. Yeah.
The Pink Cats finally got a little taste of what the Red Sox were like for about 40 years. Who loves it is the media. I mean, you can read it in the reporters and listen to it on Boston radio. They salivate about this stuff, and the miserable, cranky old Boston fan is secretly happy about this. Like, he loves to be miserable and talk about how inept ownership is and how terrible the players are and overpaid. They secretly love it. You just can sense it. You can sense it in the air.
Like, if you have two 24-hour sports radio stations, you have 5 or 6 websites and newspapers and all that stuff. And it's just like every week there's been, actually it's been 2-3 times a week there's been a new story. Today it's Kelly Shopik oh no, I didn't do the text. It wasn't my fault. It's like every day there's something for people to talk about.
That's a story that never made any sense to me either. Like, he texted from Adrian Gonzalez's phone. Like, Adrian Gonzalez is here, you can say it better than me, but use my phone, because then they'll think it's coming from me. It's like high school. I just don't understand anything about that part of the story.
I want to know what verse in the Bible covers having somebody else text bad information about your...
Whence thou stab thy manager in the back, you shall use the words of the other, or something, yes. I don't know.
Gonzo.
Poor Gonzo.
I loved Gonzo those first 3 months.
Poor Gonzo was this quiet, unassuming guy in San Diego putting up huge numbers. He was from there. He was happy.
Yeah.
And then he went to the big leagues in the Red Sox, got the big contract, and he's probably just every day probably says to himself, "What am I doing here? Why did I come here? What happened to me? Why'd you do this? Why have you forsaken me, O Lord?"
See, for like 2 minutes I was worried because I was thinking like, well, why would any player want to come to the Red Sox? Like, between the smear campaigns and just how crazy the media and the fans are and all that stuff, like, do other players watch this and just go, man, I'm so glad I'm not playing there? And then I realized, well, you could have said the same about the Yankees in the 80s with Steinbrenner, right?
Sure.
And that
oh,
turned
totally.
around. Yeah. So...
I was thinking about that today because remember a few years ago when we did a podcast and I was all bummed out because it was during the winter meetings when the Yankees were in pursuit of Santana, and Theo and the Red Sox took a meeting with Santana and the Twins, and they were just and they didn't even need pitching because they had like 6 starters at the time. They just won the World Series, and the Yankees were desperate for pitching, and the Red Sox did it just to sort of throw a monkey wrench in the Yankees' works, and it was like you looked on in awe with the way the Red Sox were run, and the Yankees seemed like a ship at sea, and now it's only a couple years later, and it's completely turned around. Like, the Red Sox organization looks completely chaotic and a huge mess, and the Yankees, knock on wood, are sailing along pretty well. So these things can turn around quickly. Especially
it's really strange.
You have a $200 million payroll. So. Well,
it's really strange because here's the part that never adds. Like, if you consider this whole thing as like going from 2003 to now. So this is basically. This is the 10th season since 2003 when the Boone homer, all that stuff.
Right.
And you could, if 2007, if they hadn't won that year, you could say, oh yeah, look at this. The organization, they won in 2004, then they got cute. Then they thought they were smarter than everybody, and but the part that doesn't make sense is they won in 2007.
Right.
And it's, so, and I'm not saying every move worked out in 06 and 07 because, they kept screwing up the shortstop thing, and the Dice K, even though he was pretty good for them in 07, he was a disaster, I think. You can't say that ever really totally worked.
Right.
But I'd love to know what happened these last 5 years because it seemed like those 3 guys worked fairly well together, Lucchino, Werner, and Henry. It seemed like they all brought different things to the table. Werner didn't know really anything about sports, but had like the Hollywood connections and was smart and just had good common sense about stuff. Henry was the money guy, and Lucchino was like the bulldog, get crap done guy. Mm-hmm. So what fell apart there?
That's the part I think John Henry got interested in owning a soccer team in England, and he seems like he's like the ultimate like celebrity fan. Like, he seems like he just loves the players and can't believe that he gets to hang out with them. And when they had their blow up last year and they were mad about something, and he invited them on his yacht and gave them all Dr. Dre headphones, that may have not been the best approach to a group of over entitled crybabies, So he seems like that. And now you have Lucchino, and he, I think there was tension between Lucchino and Epstein, and now Epstein is gone, and I think Lucchino runs the show now, and I don't know that he's the baseball mind that he himself thinks he is. He certainly has talents in being aggressive and, maybe on the marketing side or whatever, but I don't know that he's a baseball guy. And I think, Charrington's a youngish guy, new to the job. He's going to toe the company line, and I think Lucchino runs the show right now. And I think he's driving the ship right under the rocks.
Now, if there's a third party listening to this, they would have said, no, this was screwed up even as far back as 05. Remember when Theo quit?
Right. But wasn't that a fight with Lucchino or whatever then?
Yeah.
And Henry sided with Epstein, and I think Lucchino was put back in his cage for a while.
Right.
But once Epstein left, he was uncaged and unchained.
Theo we've talked about this before on the podcast. It's worth bringing up again. You really couldn't have jumped off the sinking ship at a better time.
Oh, no, he timed his exit perfectly.
Like, he was like, the ship hadn't even totally started to sink yet, unless you could say, well, I guess like the September swoon was pretty bad. So I guess that was the iceberg. And then right afterwards with the smear campaign of Francona, maybe that was the ship starting to go down. He was the first guy who went for the life raft. He was like the guy who was elbowing the old ladies and children out of the way. Get me out of there! Oh, there's one! I'm gonna grab it. Absolutely. And then that was it. And he just swimming. He's like, "Hey Theo, what happened to the people on the boat?" I don't know. I'm out. I don't know what happened.
Exactly. Yeah, no, he got out while the getting was good. No, he's no dummy. Absolutely. He saw that Crawford signing and Lackey signings really didn't work out, and this is not going to go well for a little bit here. I got to get out.
And I'm sure the current regime would love to pin everything that's happening this season on him.
Of course.
But, the
current regime, they always want to pin it on the guy who's out the door, be it Theo or be it Kelly Shopik. He was the one who was responsible for all the clubhouse tension. Come on, right. Him and Euclid, because they're both out the door now. Kelly
Shopik. How are you feeling about the Yanks?
I feel good. They've been going along pretty well. The interesting thing is how well they've played in A-Rod's absence. Chavez and Jason Nix playing third, and Casey at the bat, McGahee filling in at third base. The numbers they've put up have been like astronomical in A-Rod's stead. It's been pretty crazy.
So you're thinking maybe a possible A-Rod for Lackey and Crawford off-season trade?
Let's not go crazy here, but I think it bodes well for the postseason that they have a good bench this year, which they haven't had in the past, because you can bring in a Chavez off the bench, and you have Banez, and they have Nix. They have some things you can do off the bench now that they haven't had for the past couple of years, where they've been running out like the Dwayne Wises of the world out there in the postseason in big spots. So now you have guys that are more experienced, that have been there before, and have shown they can do it, and have a better resume. So I feel good about that.
Is it true that Chavez was training with the Jamaican sprinters?
Why, are there rumors about the Jamaican sprinters?
No, I just haven't. No. There are rumors, are there? I don't know.
I thought they were totally clean.
I was just trying to come up with somebody from the Olympics. Was he training with the 16-year-old Chinese swimmer?
You should have gone with or the Bulgarian shot putter or something.
Oh, yeah, that would have been good.
Yeah.
I thought there were always rumors about the Jamaican sprinters.
Nothing's been I don't know, maybe, but I don't know. I just thought they were fast. Bolt is all natural, right?
Here's my thing with track and field. I'm just assuming that everybody's doing something unless you tell me otherwise.
Well, that's what it is with the Tour de France, right? I mean, everybody's juicing.
From what I understand, you're allowed a certain level of testosterone that's well over what you'd need.
Yeah.
And you can kind of get up to near that level.
Well, I saw this on TV the other day when I was at the Cape, because I had limited TV options, and I was watching Nesson's coverage of Dennis and Callahan in the morning, and
okay, I'm sorry.
They were talking about Melky Cabrera, and apparently I don't know if it's just baseball or all sports, but you cannot have 4 times the normal level of testosterone of a normal human. You can have 3.9% though. Like if you're 3.9 times the normal testosterone, you're good to go. So the key in doping or whatever, I guess, is just to get the levels exactly right, because once you hit that 4 mark, 4 times, you're juicing, but 3.9, you're good to go.
That's how it is for Tour de France, and I'm sure we're going to get a million emails from people telling us we're idiots, but whatever the exact limit is, that's my general understanding, is that you can go to a certain point but can't cross some threshold. So the equivalent would be if you went out to lunch, you're going to go out to lunch today.
Yeah.
If you came back and your boss tested your blood alcohol level, and your blood alcohol level could be anything up to a 0.2.
Yeah.
But if it was 0.2 or over, you'd get fired for being drunk at work. But you get it to a 0.19, which is like 4 drinks in an hour.
Right.
That's totally fine. You're good to go.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So
and through lots of experimentation, I'd be able to hit that number pretty consistently.
It's 2 Bloody Marys and a shot of Jameson's. You're right there.
That should do it, right?
0.18.
Not
I got a
two
little more to
shots.
work with.
Not two shots. That'll be too much. But one will do. One's fine. One'll keep you right in the green zone there.
I'd love to just what would it be like to walk around with 3.8 times the amount of testosterone you actually need?
Well, Bill, it's funny you should ask. It's pretty good, let me tell you.
Be a good. We should do it for our YouTube channel's launching next week. That could be a good YouTube channel segment. We
There you go.
Robert Mays. We could one of the Grantland writers. We just get him to boost his testosterone level to 3.5 times as much for a month. See what happens.
The other thing they were talking about last week, as I watched before I went off to the beach, was apparently there's something they can inject, like these labs now, and always trying to push the boundaries farther. They can put something, they can inject like some little like metallic ball of some kind with a chemical in it, and it immediately starts to like decrease your testosterone. So you can put that in, get shot up with this thing. Then you take whatever steroids you're taking, and then it will like immediately decrease. So if you know like I'm going to get tested tomorrow, you're like you better shoot me up with whatever this is, and that will bring my levels down very quickly.
That sounds like, what was that? There was always that thing that everybody claimed could work to help you pass a marijuana test.
Oh,
was there something like that?
Yeah.
Like something you could drink, like right before, and it would like cloud the
test.
I'm trying to act dumb, like I don't know exactly what this is. But yeah, I'm sure.
So these people are always pushing the boundaries of everything, and who knows? Who knows?
I was watching 30 for 30 is coming back this fall, and the second one of this series is probably on the short list of best ones that's ever run for us. It's called 9.79, and it's about Ben Johnson in 1988.
Yeah.
And Carl Lewis and just that whole decade.
Yeah.
And let's just say they hit this subject pretty hard.
Wow.
And it's really, 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 really interesting. Anyway, yeah, I almost wish there was somebody just covering this around the clock. Like, how like Darren Ravel is like the sports business guy?
Yeah.
There should be somebody who's just like the world's expert on doping.
Victor Conti?
You could do mailbags. Just the whole thing. You just even own that corner.
Yeah.
So who are you most afraid of in the American League?
Well, I would be most afraid of the Angels, but I don't know if they're going to get in the playoffs because they can't seem to get straight.
If they didn't make the playoffs with the year that Mike Trout is randomly having, that would be incredible. Like, you're going to add Albert Pujols and Zach Greinke, and then randomly have no, but I'm just saying on paper.
Yeah.
If you had said to any Angels fans in March, by August you're going to have Albert Pujols and Zach Greinke, but also you're going to have a guy who's going to basically have the greatest rookie season since Dwight Gooden in 1985.
Right.
But you're not going to make the playoffs.
I know, they're only 62 and 60. It's really unbelievable, and they were so hot earlier, and Oakland was so hot, and they've come back to earth. So, I mean, on paper, I'm worried about Texas because, but the Yankees just own them 3 out of 4 in New York, and the Yankees have won some ungodly number. They were like 10-1 in their last 11 against Texas and New York. On paper, they would scare you, but I don't know. I'll see what happens in a big spot there. I'm not really worried about the Orioles or the Rays. I'm not worried about anybody in the Central. All these things are going to come back to haunt me, aren't they? But
I love getting you on the record.
Yes. I know. I think for like the past 10 years, I said I'm not afraid of the Tigers, and then they've swept the Yankees like 5 years in a row. I don't know. I'm not worried about this National League Central. I mean, the American League Central, really, though.
Yeah.
So.
It feels like about 2 weeks too early.
Yeah, a lot of things could happen still. Who knows? Stranger things could happen. It's only August.
We're ready,
20th.
right when football starts is when you kind of have to look and go, all right, well, this team's up by 3 games with this amount of whatever. The interesting thing to me is that Tampa not only didn't go away, but now they're in the lead for the wild card.
Yeah, they're red hot lately.
No Longoria for 4 months.
Every year they do the same thing. They just
unbelievable,
lay the weeds and they just come on, and you don't understand how the heck they're doing it with no offense, and their pitching is just that good. Or Joe Madden's a genius. I don't know what it is.
Let's talk Olympics. How much did you watch?
A lot. I watched a fair amount actually. We would tune in. The Olympics are nice in the summer because it's like, usually there's not a lot on. You could always say, "Oh, watch the Olympics." They're always intriguing.
They couldn't have picked a better time window to have the Olympics. I mean, really, you would have picked those 2 weeks probably just in terms of the sports year.
Yeah.
It was right after the basketball signings had settled down. Baseball, the trade deadline was kind of, winding down just as the Olympics were starting. And then football, it's really nothing to talk about yet. And it just kind of slid in there, these nice 16 days. It was great.
And it's funny because you really get into it and you become like a pseudo expert about things. Like,
yeah,
I put it on Twitter once or Facebook about how I watched too much Olympics because I was counseling my wife about the finer points of synchronized diving judging. I'm like, see, his legs came apart right there. The judges don't like to see that. Too big a splash. I'm like, what the hell am I talking about?
Right. I felt that way about gymnastics.
Yeah.
I somehow went to 3 gymnastics things in a week, and by the end of it, I was like, I don't think she stuck that landing.
Well, she took a step back there. Can we petition gymnastics to go back to the scoring system where we can understand it, that there was a perfect 10? Why is it a 16.53? I don't know if that's good or bad. Is that high or low? Can we just go from 1 to 10? Can we do that? Turn it to Mad Dog now. Can we do that, please? 0 to 10?
Hey, you know what was working? A perfect 10! That's what was working, Mike! I was talking about this with Brian Phillips, actually, and I meant to put this in one of my columns, and I forgot to. Brian Phillips writes for us, and we were saying, perfect 10 is like a brand.
Yeah.
The 10 was working. People know, scale of 1 to 10, she's a 10, that's a 10. It's a freaking brand. And somebody said, what if we went to 16 and we'll use decimals? And decimals 3 places over.
The only time people care about this sport is once every 4 years, and people love it because it's America's sweethearts and all that, and you want to get into it, and your average fan who only tunes in for that 2-week period doesn't understand. Unless you're Tim Daggett, you don't understand a 16.53. I was like, is that good, bad, what?
Well, trust me, in person, 10 times more confusing without announcers, especially when you're doing the things where there's rotations and the first set of people went, and then you're doing math and trying to figure out what is this, so they're here, and you're adding, and it's really confusing. They don't do a good job at all for the spectators. So basically, you don't even totally really know what you're rooting for. You're just rooting for people not to fall.
Yeah, and I always knew what the results were anyway, and I would like to spoil it for my wife because she was like, who wins here? And I'd be like, she does. She gets the goal. Don't worry. So right. I like to be a spoil sport, but so I knew the results. But if you were watching it without knowing the results ahead of time, I didn't understand. I just want to know if it's a 9 or a 10. I can understand that.
Being in London, they would have they had 20 channels going on TV. So in the morning, you'd look on your cable system and they'd have the main channel, kind of like what we have with NBC. And then they'd have any event that was going had a channel. And I think people would be surprised how boring it is. Just to be hey, here's 3 hours of judo.
Yeah, right. You really got to be into judo, yeah.
Here's 4 hours of weightlifting. And we're just going to run it with the breaks and everything. There's a reason NBC's doing what it does. I personally think they should show everything live and then have a 2-hour best of highlight show where they pretend it's live, but it's kind of wink wink. I think you could have the best of both worlds, but if for people who think that they should just run this stuff in one big clump, there's a reason they don't do it that way.
No, and some of the sports are you can't believe some of these sports are in the Olympics. It was on NBC, MSNBC, and CNBC, and then NBC Sports Network or whatever, what it used to be, Versus. So in the evenings, if we'd watch, and my wife would say, what are our choices here? One time I made the mistake of saying equestrian. She's like, I like horses.
Yeah.
She subjected me to 5 minutes of dressage or whatever, and I was only interested in it to see if Mitt Romney's horse was in it, but he wasn't. 5 minutes of dressage, you could have had me watch paint dry, and I would have understood the scoring more. I don't know, the horse jumps around. Yeah, it's pretty good tricks for a horse to jump around like that, but you couldn't tell me if that was good, bad, or indifferent. You really need to be into it.
The one you would have loved was beach volleyball. They did that one right.
I had a rooting interest because I fell in love with the Czech women's beach volleyball team, who heartbreakingly lost to America. I was not rooting against my own country, but I was rooting for the pluggy gals from the Czech Republic. And NBC gave you a lot of that because they know that's what the public wants. So I would watch a lot of that.
In person, it was really fun how they did it. They had like this announcer. It was almost like, like a DJ at a wedding. Like a DJ at a cheap wedding, I should say. Nice. Like, hey, coming up on stage number 2. And they're getting the crowd going during every point, and they're blasting music, and they had these cheerleaders dressed like 1950s cheerleaders. They're running the stands, and it was outdoors. It was very cool. I was glad I went to that one. My biggest miss was the velodrome, though. I really, really dropped the ball on that one. So I gotta. Yeah, it was just. I'd meant to get there, and it just a couple times had a conflict, and it just never worked out. And everybody said that was neat because they contained the sound really well, and there's some British people involved. It was always fun when the Brits were involved.
Yeah, they were into it, sure.
I think, Johnny, I got to be honest. I think I might have changed my opinion on British people a little bit.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, as an Irishman, 800 years of oppression and all that, I'm a little hurt by that. But.
I know. I figured you would be. It's our kind of country, though, Johnny. They hang out.
Yeah.
They just go and they go to these pubs, and they just drink and hang out and talk about stuff.
That's pretty good.
Friendly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was all right. We went to Paris for 2 days, and the French people are just miserable. What's wrong with the French people? It's a miserable group of people.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I went into the Paris 48-hour stint knowing that I didn't like French people, but man, it just got hammered home. Not a friendly group, and they do not like people who speak English. Which ridiculous. I guess I can identify that a little bit, but not a friendly group. They don't like kids. They don't like
Paris
people who speak
English. Paris is beautiful. You think you'd be happy living there, drinking wine all the time, and not so happy.
Nah, I like London. If London and Paris ever have some sort of war again, I'm in on London's side. I'm waving the English flag.
You're a couple hundred years behind that. They had those going.
That's
for a long
what I'm saying.
time,
No, I know. If stuff ever stirs up.
Yeah.
We were in a cab on the way to the Eurostar train to go to Paris, and the cab driver's like, "You going to Paris, huh?" A bunch of jerks over there. The cab drivers, they just went on this tirade about the French. It was great.
Wow.
And then it was like he talked about how they kicked their butt in the war and stuff. The English people did. So
yeah.
But yeah, I came away from it. I'd always kind of not really liked the British that much, but now I think I've swung around.
Yeah.
And then another thing, Johnny. Don't think they don't know how to do reality TV over there.
Oh really? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, they do.
No, that's good.
Oh yes.
See, it's got that going for it.
They have The Only Way is Essex, which I still don't know what actually happens on that show, but I know that my wife was totally into it. And then the Geordie Shore just is like Jersey Shore right up to the 4.0 testosterone line. It's like 3.9 Jersey Shore.
Nice.
It's great.
Nice.
Have you seen that?
No.
For anyone who's listening who wants to see reality TV taken to the X degree, I would encourage you to go watch a couple Geordie Shore episodes online.
Well, I started watching some show last night on the BBC America called Copper because I saw it advertised. It's like set in 1864 New York about this guy who's a Irish American, or maybe he's just Irish cop in 1864 New York. So it was right up my alley. So it was a pretty good show. I think I'm in on it. It was the premiere last night.
Copper
on BBC America. Got a lot of hype, and I saw it advertised different places, and I checked it out. It was good.
You don't watch Breaking Bad, right?
I do not, but everybody's encouraging me that I should, so maybe I'll add that to the list of DVDs I need to catch up on.
How about Homeland?
No, you told me I should be in on that.
Well, you have a month, because season 2's starting, I think, next month.
I'm pretty tied up because Hell on Wheels just came back on AMC. I'm into that. Season 2 started last week.
Was that a joke, or are you serious?
No, I'm serious. I like that show. I'm one of 3 people that watch it. It's me and Common's mother, because Common's in it.
You could have told me I had a joke in there for that.
And some other third guy watches it. No, it's legit. It's a good show. Underrated.
I'd like to congratulate you for being the first person who ever said, it's going to be tough because Hell on Wheels is coming back.
True. It's a good show.
Where were you when you heard the tragic news about Horseshack?
I was at the Cape, actually. I was at the Cape. Yeah, tough for the cast of Welcome Back, Kotter.
We've lost 2 of the 4 Sweat Hogs. I'm not counting Bo. I know Bo got to be in there the last season, but I don't count him.
No.
But yeah, we're down to Boom Boom and Barbarino.
The best was ESPN's own Gus Ramsey, who linked on Twitter to an article from 1978 People magazine about tension on the set of Welcome Back, Kotter.
I read that, and it was one of the most unbelievable things I've ever read in my life.
It was unbelievable on so many different levels. One, that the wife of Gabe Kotter was like a real like in the Hollywood A-lister, like with Cher.
And Kate Jackson, who gave her a motorcycle.
And Kate Jackson. I love the way it was written, where it talked about Gabe Kaplan dating former Miss Florida, who's been his lady for the past year.
Yeah.
And it talked about how the wife on Welcome Back, Kotter, whose name I can't even remember, even though I just read this article like 3 days ago. What's her name?
Marcia Strassman. Marcia Strassman. Yeah.
How it said how tension on the set has ruined her relationships with 2 lovers in the past year. I love the way the disco style of 1978, his lady and her lovers. It was fantastic.
Yeah, Lovers needs to come back. I like that she was really upset that she didn't get to spread her wings as an actor.
Yeah, exactly.
In the role of somebody who just stares at Mr. Kotter as he tells dumb stories.
And she said that her whole role boiled down to, what happened today, dear? Which was true. That was her whole role on the show.
Yeah. Well, guess what? That should have been the role.
Absolutely.
People are there for Gabe Kotter.
Absolutely. It was
I like
so
that.
Good.
You read
Horseshack
that
was the only one of the Sweat Hogs that was on her side.
If you
Except
read
for
that
Lawrence Hilton Jacobs, who was he was in both camps.
Yeah, he played both sides.
Yeah.
I like the fact that it really made it seem like she was the next Meryl Streep and she was being held back.
Yeah, right.
But then if you knew about like where her career was headed, like her big break eventually was the mom on Honey Who Blew Up the Kids. Or
Exactly.
She banged out 3 of those. Didn't really care about her creative integrity at that point.
Exactly. Well, at that point, I guess she had nothing left to lose. Just had to pay the rent, so.
No, it's called Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. That was the first one. Then the next one was Honey, I Blew Up the Kids.
Then they blew up the kids. That was such a good article, though. I enjoyed everything about it.
Yeah, we have the SI vault for those old Sports Illustrated features and stuff, but we really need like the pop culture vault.
Oh,
there, I'm giving that idea out to somebody out there. Somebody should be curating. I like the fact that the People magazine was like cranking out investigative reporting about sitcoms.
I know, instead of just being like, now it's just all happy talk, right? Everything's wonderful in Hollywood.
That was a long story, though. Like, that could have been... It was certainly longer than anything like People or Us Weekly or any of that stuff could run now.
And it was obviously the days before Publicist, because people, like, openly came out and were like, oh, I hate Gabe Kotter. I hate Gabe Kaplan. Like, I don't even look at him. Like, they would never happen nowadays.
As an enormous Gabe Kaplan fan, I was very wounded and upset by some of her comments. I didn't like them at all. 34 years later, I was pissed off. It's like, how dare you go after Gabe like this?
34 years later, he's commenting on the Celebrity Poker Tour, and she's trying to come up with the Honey, I Blew Up the Kids reunion.
Really made him seem like a prima donna. In Mr. Cotter's defense, though, he had a great sitcom, and then also he won the first Battle of Network Stars.
Right.
And you can see how that would go to somebody's head. Plus, he's filming Fast Break. Like, he just had a lot going on. When you're at the top of the mountain like Gabe, it's tough. It's tough to relate to the common folk.
When I read the 1978 People article, I thought of you because it said he recently finished production on his first feature film, Fast Break, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, my God. A young Bill Simmons somewhere. I was so excited about that.
I was disappointed they didn't talk about its Oscar chances.
It wasn't out yet, so they probably hadn't seen a preview.
Which Warner Brothers feels like, along with Kramer versus Kramer, is in the lead for best film.
She's been his lady for the past year. So good. It's ruined a relationship with 2 lovers.
Dude,
you have to read the word lovers like Will Ferrell on Saturday Night Live, too. You can't help but do that.
Why did Kate Jackson give her a motorcycle?
I'm not sure.
It's a little weird, right?
Oh, yeah.
If I gave you a motorcycle, other people would think this was weird.
Well, it was 1978. She gave her a motorcycle and probably a kilo of cocaine, too, so it was a strange time.
Oh, man.
The gas tank was packed full of cocaine. Marcia loved it. So did her lover.
It had giant straws coming out of it. All right, Johnny.
All right.
So, Yankees, you're not worried. It doesn't sound like you're remotely worried.
No, not really. I feel good.
I should be very worried. I'm the one who should be very, very, very concerned here.
Absolutely.
You know, here's the biggest shocker for me, and then we'll leave.
All right.
I asked my dad. I called him last week from Europe. Hey, tell me about the Red Sox. Like, what's going on? And he was just like, everybody's kind of moved on to the Patriots.
Wow.
That was it. He didn't really care. It was kind of like the Red Sox had burned the 2012 bridge.
Right.
And now I don't know. I don't personally think, because I have some friends back home who don't feel that way. But I think for a lot of people, everybody else is more excited about Chandler Jones and
that's if you read the Boston Globe comments, that's a lot of people say, well, it's football season, bring on football. So you have won the World Series now. It's not an 86-year drought. You've won it twice in the past 10 years. And the rise of the Patriots means that there's something else to look forward to besides the Celtics, as it traditionally always was. So it probably helps to cushion the blow a little bit about the implosion of the Red Sox.
And the Celtics-Heat rivalry, and if hockey comes back, another cup contender, the Red Sox, this could be the first September since, I'm going to say, 97, when the team has been completely irrelevant even heading into September.
Yeah, could be. That's why the drama will get played up even more, because the media will be trying to keep it interesting, and there'll be everybody will be smearing everybody, which will just be fantastic.
What would you give me for the odds of Francona coming back?
Oh, I think it's a possibility.
What would you give me for odds, though?
I don't think it's a rock solid lock, but I'd say it's like a 50-50 shot.
50-50?
Yeah, wouldn't shock me. Although, you know what? Everybody just thinks it's a foregone conclusion that Bobby V is gone next year, but I don't know, with this ownership group and Lucchino, I don't know that he's automatically gone next year. Because who was the other candidate to come in? 50-50 is too high, actually. I'd say maybe like 30% chance Francona comes back, now that I think about it. But more shocking things have happened.
Here's how I fix this in 3 steps, Johnny. 1, fire Bobby V, replace him with Veritek.
No.
2, Dave Roberts, first base coach.
Okay.
3, Kevin Millar, third base coach. Done. Boom. We're back, baby.
If you have an amok clubhouse of players who have a sense of entitlement and don't listen to discipline, and I don't think bringing in their buddy, their former teammate, as the manager, and their former drinking buddy as the third base coach is really going to help things.
What about Pedro as pitching coach?
That's perfect.
Just bring back as many as the 04 guys as you can. Yeah, just bring it back. Just run it back.
There you go. Maybe that's the key. Maybe I'm sure they'll listen to you.
I don't think they're going to. I think my fear is that we actually could, just out of sheer stubbornness, see the return of Bobby V in year 2 is in play. I wouldn't bet on it, but it's in play. Yeah. I would say the odds of Francona are more like 5-1, just because I think he probably thinks these guys are,
He probably wouldn't do it. But
yeah, that's why I don't think he would come back. I think if you're him, you could go to, fresh start, another city, no baggage, and be much happier probably.
Unless a tearful Dustin Pedroia held up a cribbage board in the rain, like what was that movie? Say Anything.
Say Anything.
Like Lloyd Dobler holding up the radio, playing In Your Eyes. A tearful Scrappy Binky holds up the cribbage board that they used to play cribbage on, and Francona runs and says, "I can't quit you," and then they walk off. That's how the movie ends.
You know what, Johnny? I allowed you 18 Dustin Pedroia jokes, but 19 was too much. That's why I gotta take a stand now. You just went too far. Push the line. Now you're starting to hurt feelings.
That's my intention. Good.
Johnny, we will talk to you next week.
All right, sounds
good to be back. Thanks for being on the BS Report.
Anytime. Bye-bye.
So I get to sign off.
Whoa.
Thank you for downloading the B.S. Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Podcenter at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.
All right, fans, by now you should know that millions of fans use StubHub and the StubHub app to find the seats they want to games, concerts, and more. But one thing you may not know is that you can also go on StubHub to set a price alert. That means you choose where you want to sit and the price you want to pay. Then if another fan lists tickets for sale within your price range, StubHub will email to let you know. Pretty great, huh? So head to StubHub today to get your tickets or the app to set a price alert. You can't go wrong.
StubHub!